1984 George Orwell. The Ministry of Truth-Minitrue in Newspeak was startlingly different from any other object in sight. It was an enormous pyramidal structure in glittering white concrete, shot up terrace after terrace, 300 meters into the air. From where Winston stood, it was just possible to read. Picked out on its white face in elegant lettering, the three slogans of the party: war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. The Ministry of Truth contained, it was said, 3,000 rooms above ground level and corresponding ramifications below. Scattering about London, there were just 3 other buildings of similar appearance and size, so completely did they dwarf the surrounding architecture that from the roof of a Victory mansion you could see all 4 of them simultaneously. They were the homes of the 4 ministries between which the entire apparatus of government was divided. The Ministry of Truth, which concerned itself with news, entertainment, education, and fine art. The Ministry of Peace, it concerned itself with war. The Ministry of Love, which maintained law and order. And the Ministry of Plenty, which was responsible for economic affairs. Their names in Newspeak, Minitrue, Minipex, Minilove, and Miniplenty. The Ministry of Love was the really frightening one. There were no windows in it at all. Winston had never been inside the Ministry of Love, nor within half a kilometer of it. It was a place impossible to enter except on official business, and then only by penetrating through a maze of barbed wire entanglement, steel doors, and hidden machine gun nests. Even the street leading up to its outer barriers were roamed by gorilla-faced guards in black uniforms armed with joint truncheons. Winston turned around abruptly. He had set his figure into the expression of quiet optimism, which it was advisable to wear when facing the telescreen. He crossed the room into the tiny kitchen. By leaving the ministry at this time of day, he had sacrificed his lunch in the canteen, and he was aware that there was no food in the kitchen except a hunk of dark-colored bread, which had got to be saved for tomorrow's breakfast. He took down from the shelf the bottle of a colorless liquid, either a fair, plain, white label-marked Victory gin. It gave off a stickily, oily smell, as of Chinese rice spirit. Winston poured down nearly a teacupful, lowered himself for a shock, and gulped it down like a dose of medicine. Instantly his face turned scarlet, and the water ran out of his eyes. The stuff was like nitric acid, and moreover, in swallowing it, one had the sensation of being hit on the back of the head with a rubber club. The next moment, however, the burning in his belly died down, and the world began to look more cheerful. He took a cigarette from a crumbled packet marked Victory cigarette, and incautiously held it alight. Hereupon, the tobacco fell out onto the floor. With the next, he was more successful. He went back to the living room and sat down at a small table that stood to the left of the telescreen. From the table drawer, he took out a pen holder, a bottle of ink, and a thick quarter-sized blank book with a red, black, and marbled cover. For some reason, the telescreen of living room was in the unusual position. Instead of being placed, as was normal, in the end wall, where it could command the whole room, it was the longer wall of a giant window. To one side of it, there was a shallow alcove in which Winston was now sitting, and which, when the flat was built, had probably been intended to hold bookshelves. By sitting in the alcove and keeping well back, Winston was able to remain outside the range of the telescreen so far as sight went. He could be heard, of course, but so long as he stayed in his present position, he could not be seen. It was partly the unusual geography of the room that had suggested to him the thing that he was now about to do. But it had also been suggested by the book that he had just taken out of the drawer. It was a peculiarly beautiful book. Its smooth, creamy paper, a little yellowed by age, was a kind that had not been manufactured for at least 40 years past. He could guess, however, that the book was much older than that. He had seen it lying in the window of a frosty little junk shop in a slummy quarter of the town, just what quarter he did not now remember, and had been stricken immediately by an overwhelming desire to possess it. Party members were supposed not to go into ordinary shops dealing on the free market, it was called. But the rule was not strictly kept, because there were various things such as shoelaces and razor blades which it was impossible to get hold of in any other way. He had given a quick glance up and down the street and then had slipped inside and bought the book for $2.50. At the time, he was not conscious of wanting it for any particular purpose. He had carried it guiltily home in his briefcase, even with nothing written in it. It was a compromising possession. The thing that he was about to do was to open a diary. This was not illegal. Nothing was illegal since there was no longer any laws. But if detected, it was reasonably certain that it would be punished by death, or at least by 25 years in a forced labor camp. Winston fitted a nib into the pen holder and sucked it to get the grease off. The pen was an archaic instrument, seldom used even for signature, and he had procured one, portably and with some difficulty, some because of a feeling that the beautiful creamy paper deserved to be written on with a real nib instead of being scratched with an ink pencil. Actually, he was not used to writing by hand. Apart from very short notes, it was usual to dictate everything into the speaker light, which was of course impossible for his present purpose. He dipped the pen into the ink and then faltered for just a second. A tremor had gone through his bowels. To make the paper was the decisive act. In small, clumsy letters he wrote, April 4th, 1984. He sat there. A sense of complete helplessness had descended upon him. To begin with, he did not know with any certainty that this was 1984. It was be round about that date, since he was fairly sure that his age was 39, and he believed that he had been born in 1944 or 1945. But it was never possible nowadays to pin down any date within a year or two. For whom it suddenly occurred to him to wonder, was he writing this diary for the future, for the unborn? His mind hovered for a moment round the doubtful date on the page, and then patched up with a bump against Newspeak was double think. The first time the magnitude of the part he had undertaken came home to him. How could you communicate with the future? It was of its nature impossible. Either the future would best resemble the present, in which case it would not listen to him, or it would be different from it, and his predicament would be meaningless. For some time he sat gauging his stupidity at the paper. The telescreen had changed over a strident military music. It was curious that he seemed not merely to have lost the power of expressing himself, but even to have forgotten what it was that he had originally intended to say. For weeks past he had been making ready for this moment, and it had never crossed his mind that anything would be needed except courage. The actual writing would be easy. All he had to do was to transfer to paper the intermediate restless monologue that had been running inside his head, literally for years. At this moment, however, even the monologue had dried up. Moreover, his varicose ulcer had begun itching unbearably. He dared not scratch it, because if he did so, it already became inflamed. The seconds were ticked by. He was conscious of nothing except the blankness of the page in front of him, the itching of the skin above his ankle, the blaring of the music, and the slight booziness caused by the gin. Suddenly, he began writing in sheer panic, only imperceptibly aware of what he was setting down. His small but childish handwriting straggled up and down the page, shading first its capital letters and finally even its full stops. Okay.